this is mighty interesting. Just a minute.
Climate Summit in Scotland. This is the second week of the summit, and one of the issues on the agenda is gender inequality when it comes to climate change.
Ain't that some
Climate
shit?
specialist Carl Parker explains.
Let's watch.
Intense hurricanes and catastrophic flooding. These events remind us that no one is safe from extreme weather, but some people are more vulnerable.
Climate change turns up the heat, so to speak, on
Stop.
existing vulnerabilities and injustices that people face. And some of those fall along the lines of gender.
Take the Bangladesh cyclone of 1991. 91% of the deaths were women, largely due to the way women were raised and expected to behave.
Education and literacy. Women were less able to read the public warnings that were posted, and those warnings were largely posted in places where women weren't allowed.
This isn't just a problem in underdeveloped nations.
The intersection of gender and climate can play out really differently in different places.
An Australian study shows violence toward women increased
Stop.
during the bushfires of 2019 and 2020. Researchers in the U.S. found a similar trend after Hurricane Katrina. Physical victimization of women rose 98%.
This is linked with family stress, economic situations, and oftentimes the woman in the household may not feel that she can safely leave the household because she wants to continue maintaining a stable environment for the children or have access to food and shelter.
Women also express greater concern about the risks of climate change. According to a study from the Women's Environment and Development Organization, women in post-Katrina New Orleans believe their homes are at a greater risk from floods. And in Florida, women perceive greater risks associated with hurricanes and other extreme weather events, including droughts or declines in tourism.
Being more averse to taking on risk or imposing it on other people, that's a really useful thing on a hot planet.
Researchers have found climate action is more successful when women are given a seat at the proverbial table. Female lawmakers tend to more strongly support environmental laws. And higher political and social status for women correlates with lower carbon emissions and greater creation of protected land areas.
This isn't just about who is leading, but it's about how we're leading. And women are bringing in droves a kind of leadership that I think is really critical, but it's also wide open to people of any gender. And that's leadership that focuses on moving beyond ego, linking arms, leading not just with our heads, but also with our hearts, and centering a deep commitment to justice.
Interesting.
We
So
want to
anyways,
take you live right now to Nashville, Tennessee.
so what I wanted to say is, let me close this down a little bit, is that me and my mom were just talking about how there's an inequality with Social Security as well. How many women work their whole lives, and because they're supposed to rely on their husband for their Social Security, that the amount of money they make is significantly less, even if she herself worked her whole life and worked longer than her husband and made more money than her husband. Her Social Security is still lower by $300 or more than her husband, even if she worked longer and had been paid more money than he had throughout his work career. And, you know, there's an inequality there, but nobody ever talks about that Social Security inequality because, you know, there's a very patriarchal structure for Social Security where you're supposed to be relying on your husband's income. Stop it. Income. And yeah, you basically make less money even though you've worked more hours than your husband, and or even though you put in more money into Social Security than your husband, and or even though you worked more hours, more time, years spent working than your husband, and you still make less. So there's definitely an inequality to that. I want to have her and another older lady that I know that her husband passed away. She's going to be 83, and how her Social Security was much, much less than her husband's as well.